As bad as the latest unemployment numbers are, they're even worse for African Americans. Our economics correspondent Paul Solman looks at the impact that's having in East St. Louis, Illinois. His report is the latest in his series on making sense of economic news.
East St. Louis is right there.
Political science professor Andrew Thyssen.
We are about to get on the Poplar Street Bridge, which is the main interstate bridge connecting Missouri and Illinois.
A bridge across the Mississippi from St. Louis to East St. Louis. A case study in black unemployment, which jumped last month to more than 17% nationwide for men. Add in estimates of so-called discouraged workers and the underemployed, and black unemployment is around 30% for men in places like this, a number reminiscent of the Great Depression. The prospects for high school kids?
It's about who you know. If you don't know nobody, you're not getting in there.
Prospects for older workers?
If I could get minimum wage, I'd be happy. But there aren't any jobs for a 63-year-old man, not in this area that I can get.
It was not always thus. In its heyday for blacks, East St. Louis was all about jobs. They came from the South to work at meat processors, metalworks, utility plants.
Just imagine how much smoke came out of the smokestacks of that. A ton of coal every 30 seconds, and the wind blows to the east.
St. Louis, Missouri got the power, East St. Louis, Illinois, the pollution. Dirty work, but work. Until the plants started leaving town, white flight accelerated. And now the Great Recession further ravages, if that's possible, a city that's 99% black.
They have fewer skills, they have less income, they have less savings, they live in the worst areas of town.
It reminds historian Cheryl Lynn Greenberg of the worst of times for black unemployment, the Great Depression.
The Depression was hard for everyone, but it was particularly hard for African Americans. In every way, they fared worse than whites did.
That's how they remember it at the senior center.
It was horrible. You didn't have food to eat hardly. The government had to give you food. And they even give you seeds to plant to make the victory gardens.
Did you plant them?
Sure, we planted. We had to. Otherwise, we would have starved.
Professor Greenberg has just written the soon-to-appear To Ask for an Equal Chance, African Americans in the Great Depression.
At the height of the Depression, probably 25% of white people were out of work. And that number in the African American community was between 50 and 75%, depending on where you looked.
After World War II, industrial cities recovered somewhat, but as the middle class left St. Louis and East St. Louis for the suburbs, their economies and infrastructure crumbled.
I used to work in East St. Louis for the University of Illinois, and I had to replace the shocks on my car after 30 days.
With its industry deteriorating, and tax base too, there's no money to repave the roads. Or even turn on the traffic lights, says Deborah Moore, a former professor who now heads an agency that distributes federal and state grants.
There's no cost to the city at all to have a light dead, a light totally dysfunctional. That's a way to save money.
80,000 people once lived here. The number's now 30,000. No wonder so much is shuttered, including a McDonald's, a KFC, a Wendy's. Even the Casino Queen, the city's second largest employer, is on a losing streak, prompting layoffs and a $2 million city budget deficit.
To remedy that deficit, there was a decision yesterday by the mayor and the city leaders to lay off staff. So a determination was made that 5 police officers would be laid off. The interesting thing, however, is that during the time of this meeting almost, there was a robbery occurring in the Schnucks store, our local major grocer, and it resulted in the death of the security guard.
And yet they're laying off policemen at the same exact moment.
That is the plan, to lay off policemen.
This is the recording studio. It's been almost entirely built by the students of YouthBuild.
Vicky Forby's charter school takes kids that haven't made it elsewhere. YouthBuild teaches hands-on job skills like building a recording studio.
They've done everything from laying the tile, staining the wood, selecting the wood. The ceiling was really incredible to watch them do. They had to tear out all the old tiling that was in the building and take all the old air conditioning system out.
So you've got kids here who can do, as far as the eye can see, truly professional work.
Absolutely.
Kids who can build a pro sound studio, but can't find a job.
People that I grew up with, you know, they either dead or in jail, or, you know what I'm saying? So,
Any of them working?
not for real.
Joeshawn Williams elaborating on what you heard earlier.
You gotta know somebody. If you don't know nobody, ain't even no use to wasting your time. Because that's what the world's about these days. You gotta know somebody.
Is it true?
Yes, it's very true. Because I done had at least 6 jobs. And the only reason I have got them because I knew the manager or I knew one of their employees. You even have to get connections at McDonald's. I don't know why, but it's like that. That's how you have to have connections to work at McDonald's.
So the cliche would seem to hold. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And if you live in the inner city, who do you know? You have far fewer valuable human connections, less so-called social capital, a concept developed by economist Glenn Lowry, whose own teenager just got a summer job in Cambridge because he does have connections.
Did my kid earn that? No, the kid just got the benefit of having his dad know somebody who could hook him up.
But you can understand the employer's point of view.
If you get word of mouth, if someone you trust will not send someone over who's going to not work out, then you tend to rely on that. I wish I could make a new world in which these kids didn't sit, over on the dark side of the moon practically in terms of social connection. But there it is.
Does it get worse in a downturn?
Yeah, it gets desperately worse. Maybe people are falling over into the criminal justice system more so than they otherwise would, things of this kind. So the cost here could be quite substantial.
This is speculative, of course. What's not is that blacks now, as back in the 30s, are being hit hardest, says economist William Rogers.
When we entered the recession, African Americans started with a higher unemployment rate, and as we've gone through these last 16 months, the gap has widened. That is, African American unemployment rates have risen faster, particularly men's have risen faster than they have for whites.
This is the building that I work in.
Our last stop in East St. Louis, a burnt townhouse, being painted by an old friend of Andy Theising's, Bobby Williams. He at least has a job.
But not enough money to live off of. Not enough money to live off of. If I got $100 a week, I'd be happy.
A musician who's long survived as a day laborer, Williams can no longer rely on the community that once employed him, however meagerly.
Nobody has any money. I can't walk down the street every day and say, let me paint your fence, because the people's fence that need painting don't have any money to pay for it. Most of the time I wind up doing it for, well, you can do this for me and I'll do this for you. Then came one day, a magic day came my way.
So the Great Recession has left Bobby Williams bartering long after the Great Depression. It's a richer, more equal country, but for students of African American employment, there's a sense in which it's the same old song.